You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. Hulk. Smash.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
Here's Johnny. What do you want?
Hey, motherfucker.
You never go ass to mouth.
Now what is so damn funny?
And here we go. We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight.
The Force will be with you. Always.
But the truth! You can't handle the truth! Showtime, everybody! Showtime!
What's up, fanboys and fangirls? Welcome to episode 15 of the For Real Movie Club podcast. We do this once every month. We break down a couple different movies with a centralized theme, and this month we're going to talk about Terminator for the upcoming release of Terminator Genisys. Ugh. I have zero faith in that film, but I will be watching it and plunking down my $15 anyway, god damn it. And the reason why is because Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 are two of my favorite movies of all time. Terminator 2, of course, is the favorite movie of mine of all time. And Terminator 3 is terrible, and Terminator 4 is terrible. But we're going to break down Terminators 1 through 4. We can't obviously do the television series on top of this, because that is just far too much to break down 2 seasons worth of material like that. But we're going to follow the continuity of the movies. We're going to give you our opinions about that kind of stuff, and we are going to, rate them and everything else we normally do with the For Real Movie Club. So I should introduce who's going to be talking. I am Tony Mango, your host of the panel. I'm joined by Caroline Oliveira.
Hello. And
Sam Lassio.
Is Wolfie okay?
Wolfie's fine. Where are you? If I didn't hold myself back, there would be so many quotes tonight. I do literally have sections off on these notes that I have. It's going to be ridiculous. So, forewarned, I may ramble about things that people are like, that's dumb, who cares? And I'll be like, but no, because you see the way that they used aluminum in this one scene? And that's a real note. Actually is.
Jesus.
I don't judge. I mean, if this is like a horror one, I will be blabbing. So I think it's awesome, Tony. I'm just hoping that there's not gonna be 100 billion puns all over the place. But do so do you?
There's not gonna be as many puns because when it's
because you're passionate about it.
When it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger thing, he's already beaten me to them.
Yeah, come on, Tony. Just terminate your list.
We need to do a whole episode of something that's just the best Arnold Schwarzenegger puns, like lay off some steam, Bennett, and ice them and stuff.
Get your chopper.
Oddly enough, though, out of all the ones that we're going to talk about first, we're going to go in the continuity of the films in the chronological order, of course. The closest one to a horror film and the one that has the least amount of puns. Terminator 1, The Terminator is just called. Directed by James Cameron. The film came out in 1984, and my God, does it look like it came out in 1984. To give you a little information about some of the movie, the side parts of it, and just that kind of statistics and whatever like that, it is widely considered one of the best action films of all time. It's something where it introduced, I think, the Terminator came in like the top 10 of the AFI's best villains of all time. Don't quote me on that one. I don't have the note written down. James Cameron not only wrote and directed it, but he was inspired to make this based off of a dream that he had. He originally, had no idea for this kind of thing. It was just kind of like brainstorming about different movies that he wanted to do in the future and whatever like that. But he had a dream one night that there was a skeleton on fire, and that's what made the whole movie. There's that scene in the end where the skeleton, the endoskeleton, is fully burned off from the tanker explosion, and you see the shot of him coming out of the rubble. That's the entire basis of this whole series. It's very odd.
Wasn't there a legal battle that they there was a legal situation where they thought they ripped off an episode of Outer Limits or something?
Yeah, there's a lot of different time travel things, and of course any time that you have anything to do with time travel, people are like, that's my idea, and you're like, well, all right, show us the point where there was like the future humankind and this and that and stuff, and it's like, well, that's not in it, but I want money.
Oh,
Right.
here, I found it. The Terminator is the only character to be listed in the American Film Institute 100 Heroes and Villains as both a villain, the Terminator in 1984, and a hero for Terminator 2.
Notice Terminator 3 is not in there.
Right.
Because it's garbage.
And for you DC fans out there, Deathstroke was originally called Deathstroke the Terminator, but they stopped referring to him as the Terminator because of this movie.
And then eventually Deadpool came, and people started making comparisons between those two, and people are like, what the fuck, Slade?
Right.
So, let's just get started with some of this talk. The very first note that I have written down is something that I think goes overlooked quite a bit. It's the opening titles explain everything that you need to know about everything about the movie. And it's not just the little text that they have on the screen where they explain literally the plot, but you get a good showing of the dystopian future, and the music is just amazing. For such a violent concept, Brad Fiedel has such a sad theme. And that's one of my favorite parts about this series. The fact that you can take a movie like this, if you didn't know anything about Terminator and you just were trying to explain it to somebody and you said, all right, so there's this big dude, right? And he's actually a robot and he's going to kill this woman because she's going to have a kid who is going to save the human race in the future. That seems like it might come off like Demolition Man or The Running Man or something where you could just have, you know, loud explosions and, you know, heavy metal or rock music or something like that, and that would be fine. But they go for a somber tone with the music. It's not, you know, this is an action movie and this is going to be fucking awesome. It's just
it's basically like, look, in the future, we're basically dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a funeral march.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't get pumped about how the human race is going to be in the future.
Wasn't there something like a tank rolling over human skulls or something?
Oh, that's in
the
Terminator
second
2.
one, I think. Yeah.
See, I'm mixing these movies.
Oh,
I mean, they
I'm
do
gonna be
show
mixing
it.
all of them all the time.
They do show it in Terminator 1, but I know the shot that you're thinking of, and that's Terminator 2. That's the beginning of Terminator 2. But Terminator 1, the only shot that you see is the HK flying, which is, in retrospect, the stop motion animation that they used in it. It doesn't hold up as well. You can kind of tell where they switched it. Like,
oh yeah,
you know, it kind of moves and then it freezes for a second and then it moves over and stuff. But you know, it's 1984, and then Terminator 2 more than made up for it.
But now Terminator Genisys is the same year, and apparently it's still futuristic.
Is it supposed to be the same year?
Yeah, they go back. It's Kyle Reese going back to the first movie.
I don't know if they specified that it was 84, though.
See, like, that's like making me so confused.
I don't know what they're planning on doing with that one other than fucking it up. No, that's it. But, yeah, the basic theme of the movie is Skynet is the cybernetic organisms that are controlling the planet. They have nearly wiped out the human race, but there's one guy who is responsible for turning things around. That's John Connor, and it's Sarah Connor's kid, who she has never, you know, had yet. So the Terminators send a Terminator back in time to try to retroactively abort him. Fantastic premise. Really, like, outside the box thinking, instead of just somebody made a computer and they're gonna fight in the present time or something like that. No, you go crazy with it and stuff. Opening stuff, one of the things that stands out to me with the beginning of the film, and this is just a stupid quote that I've always loved. The one truck driver, when Arnold's character comes through the time displacement field, it's this older black guy. He's wearing a hard hat. He's very like stereotypical kind of thing, but he's got this great line, and it always makes me laugh. He goes, "What the hell, goddamn son bitch." And then like about 30 seconds afterward, the electricity and stuff starts happening, and he repeats, "What the hell?" again in the exact same fashion. I always love it when people say one thing and then say the exact same thing again. Quentin Tarantino is great at that. The movie Four Rooms, he's like, say hello to Ted the Bellboy. Somebody's like, what? And he's like, say hello to Ted the Bellboy. It's like, you might as well have doubled up the audio.
Right. Just like how the Roadrunner was only one.
Yeah. So, odd imagery when you first see, the villain of the film, buck-ass naked. What do you guys think about that? The idea that they can somehow send a Terminator back through time with the living tissue over it, but they can't send weapons and they can't send clothes.
Right, why not put, like, a gun on human skin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Geek alert here, but it's true. If his skin, it's made out of anything like silicone has a very, very high tolerance for heat. In extreme conditions, metal will be most likely to melt than to have silicone melt, so maybe that's why. Maybe it's like this uber advanced silicone material. And also I feel like it just gives them, a chance to let Arnold show his tiny tush for a sec.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there.
He has a very small butt.
Caroline,
doesn't it?
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yes.
And simply say I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry,
and
I've studied physics. And the only reason that they said the time travel thing could only be flesh was literally because they didn't want to spend their entire special effects budget on a Terminator entire movie.
Yeah, and the fact that, you have Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie.
And if you're going to be realistic with time travel, it would probably suit you to actually put on a metal suit if you were going to do something like that.
We'll see what happens with Fantastic Four when they go to different dimensions and stuff.
Right.
But they do say in the movie, when Kyle Reese is being interrogated, he says, I don't know, something about the energy generated by a living organism, and they're like, why don't you bring the weapons? And he's like, I didn't build a fucking thing. I love that line.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, fuck you, dude. I don't know. What the fuck?
Right, because like so many times they'll like do in a movie where like this guy is a grunt foot soldier, but apparently knows as much as like physicists.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, this guy's saying like, look, I didn't build it. I don't know the first thing about it. All I know is I came back. That's it.
But it always made me think, why don't they just like alongside the Arnold Terminator send like a big, huge plasma rifle wrapped up in tissue?
Yeah.
But of course then he'd, be walking around the streets of LA with a goddamn plasma rifle. And you can't have that. Which there's another great scene in there I love where he buys the guns. And he's like, I'll have the Uzi 9mm, and he's like, oh, you really know your guns and stuff. And what else can I get you? Phased plasma rifle with a 40-watt range. Hey, just what you see here, pal. Odd note about the sound effects. They changed for the special edition the sound of his gun with the laser sighting. It used to go boom, boom, boom kind of thing. You watch the special edition now, it's like a whip kind of thing.
No.
It's very like, I don't know why they did that. It's not like the rest of the movie isn't violent as fuck.
Right.
So we get introduced to our characters in an odd way. You see Arnold Schwarzenegger's T-800 in a great scene with the whole the punks playing around with the telescope. And the whole wash day tomorrow, nothing clean. I think this guy's a couple cans short of a six-pack. Really, just a weird way to introduce a villain to be like kind of funny in that situation. You would think that like the very first scene would be him just like murdering a bunch of people and stuff, and he does. But you see him naked and you laugh.
Right.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I mean, unless they're trying to like ease off the audience, like but then it wouldn't really. Yeah, I don't know. I still think think it was just like to show his ass and like how amazingly built he was back then.
Basically.
Fun
Yeah.
fact about the leader, the punk people, the one with the crazy hair, the blue hair.
The blue hair.
Do you guys know who that is?
Oh, I just saw his ass. Well, not his ass, like his face.
You saw his ass? This movie's just a
No,
bunch of ass shots.
Sorry, I've been talking about Schwarzenegger's ass for a while. Now my mind is confused.
It's Bill Paxton.
No, okay. Who?
Bill Paxton.
Ah.
He was in Aliens. He was in True Lies, if I'm remembering correctly. Or
Yeah,
maybe
he
that
was-
was Bill Pullman.
He was the dad in Big Love.
You're talking about the guy with the Coolio haircut, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in a lot of James Cameron movies. Titanic. He didn't have anything to do with Apollo 13, but he was in that. Like, yeah, he's, for somebody who is a well-known actor, it's kind of weird to look at him and just be like, oh, you're the guy who gets, killed in the very first scene
Right.
of Terminator, kind of.
Yeah. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I just remember
Yeah,
that.
that's true. And he gets killed there, too. And pisses himself in True Lies. Stellar career. I just have like so many notes that I can sporadically. So if anybody has like, oh, let's take the direction in one way, feel free to, because I could always bounce around. But very 80s electronic music throughout this, and the best time that you can see, or here I guess you could say, when the music really kicks in is the shots where Kyle Reese, he has already taken the clothes off the homeless man, which is great because that guy took my pants. And when he's running away from the cops and stuff, you had got that kind of music, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh man, it's great, but it's terrible at the same time. I love Brad Fiedel. Brad Fiedel actually has a cameo in the movie. He's a cop. When Arnold kills the one cop and then he replicates his voice later on, that's the guy who composed the music.
Nice.
Oh, that is so cool.
It reminds me of the music in the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, quite a bit. Which I love that music too.
Yeah.
Especially the song Attack. It's great. Best song out of this whole movie, though, I would have to say, other than the main theme, there's a song called Future Remembered that is the background score for the, I guess you could say, the flashback future, kind of.
The flash forward.
Yeah, the flash forward to something that hasn't happened yet that already happened in the past. They literally say in these series, you go crazy thinking about this shit.
I guess it's Kyle's flashback.
Yeah. The scene where he goes to the underground bunker and the Terminator storms in and starts just like slaughtering everybody, that music is just haunting. But Brad Fiedel, he has a cameo not in this one, but not only in this one, but in Terminator 2 too. I'll bring that up later. When you introduce the two characters and you don't know what's going on, the movie plays with that quite a bit, and you get to see Sarah Connor, and she's got the ridiculous 80s hairstyle, and you get to meet her roommate and the whole ridiculous things that she does with her boyfriend Matt.
What was her thing? It was like, sorry, stupid, you're talking to a machine.
Yeah, when you call up the answering machine and it's like, hi, ha ha ha, fooled you, you're talking to a machine and whatever, and
then Terminator just looks at it like,
and it comes into play. That's the reason why he's able to track her down a little bit later on. It's a really good set of examples for how you can build something up in a movie, just a little detail, and it'll pay off later, instead of just being like, well, let's just throw this to the wall and see if it sticks.
Right. Which, unfortunately, it's probably what's going to happen with the new one, I feel like, because...
The new one's going to be so much action, and that's all they're going to care about.
That's true. And it's just going to make it so confusing. Like, I don't, like... Does it... I mean, will it mean that the first one will just be not the real situation anymore?
No, it's something that's referred to as a soft reboot, where it's still in the same universe of continuity, but they time travel. X-Men Days of Future Past did the same thing. They didn't reboot the series, but they went back in time and they closed the time loop such that it's going to follow a new timeline. So now they don't have to follow old continuity.
but they're also really taking advantage of the idea that everybody likes the first two movies, and they're replicating this whole introduction, essentially. And it looks kind of cool, I'll admit it. Like, it looks like they built the same basic set, although for some reason now there's an Asian T-1000, and, the actors are worse.
It's like they just combined the first two movies.
I'll be really happy if they do something where they show, like, Jai Courtney is playing Kyle Reese in this one for some reason. And if they show a shot of him putting on Nike sneakers, I'll be okay. Blatant product placement, but, at least he's got those sneakers, because he's got shitty homeless person pants and...
So basically, for anybody listening to this review of Terminator is brought to you by Terminator Genisys.
That's why we're doing it. So yeah, we will be reviewing Terminator Genisys when that movie comes out and shitting all over it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I will. You can tell me how it was. I'll listen to the podcast.
But James Cameron does a great job throughout this film of building something up for a little bit later on, or paying something off in retrospect or something. And there's a great shot that I think summarizes how he's able to do this, where Arnold just crushes a toy truck with his car. He just runs it the fuck over. That proves to you right there, like, this Terminator has no, like, it's just gonna bust through everything. And of course, right afterward, he just flat out murders Sarah Connor in the middle of the daylight. There's a deleted scene that not a deleted scene really, but like a deleted extension of the scene, where instead of cutting away after he shoots her a bunch of times, just immediately cutting to the next thing, that shows him just getting back into the car and leaving. And all the people on the street are, like, running away, and, there's actually, like, behind him, there were people playing out on their front lawn and stuff like that. And James Cameron was like, I really wanted to show here that this Terminator does not give a shit at all if he's seen by people killing people.
Because no one's going to stop him.
No.
Yeah, he's a machine.
Now, one thing I thought was interesting, that has this ever been stated?
Ooh.
What the hell?
Sorry.
It has been stated. That was the sound effect that says yes, ding.
Yeah. What was the Terminator supposed to do after it killed Sarah?
Doesn't matter.
Just kill a bunch of people until someone destroys it? Was it supposed to shut down?
Like self-destructs or something?
No, they're not able to self-destruct.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I've always taken it as it doesn't matter. Like, their programming is just to do this one thing, and then after that, then whatever happens, happens. But, like, as far as the Terminator is concerned with, if Sarah's dead, that's the only goal. And I would assume if, like, that would have happened, it probably would have just killed a bunch of humans until it got blown up.
That's what I probably would have figured, because after Sarah was killed, it probably would have reverted to base programming.
Right. Like, mission priority is kill Sarah Connor, and then objective 2 is, hey, remember all those humans? Yeah, fuck them.
I do have a question for Mr. Mango, because I feel like he's an expert on this. During the first movie, the Terminator, he was like the top,
top of the line?
Yeah, top of the line Terminator, right? Or no?
Yeah, the T-800 was top of the line until the T-1000.
All right, here's a bad pun. He was the top of the assembly line. All right, continue.
No, okay, that was my question, because I wasn't 100% sure, because I remember that on the second one, and we're gonna get to that anyways soon, but he makes a point. Oh, God damn it! Sorry, I keep hitting my head. He makes a point in saying that.
Are you a Terminator?
Yeah. What the?
No, I have like a little brooch in my hair, and I keep like hitting the lamp, and it's like, sorry. Yeah, no, because by Terminator 2, he's definitely not, right? And that's like one of the arguments, like, oh, he's better than you, and you come to defend me. Well, he's coming too. Come
obsolete
after me.
design.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah, because the original plan for this actually wasn't even something like an Arnold Schwarzenegger. Originally, when he was writing the script for it, James Cameron wanted the guy not the main cop, the older black cop, the younger white cop, who's like scrawny. Lance Henriksen is the actor's name. He was going to be Terminator.
Oh.
Because they're supposed to be an infiltration unit, so they're supposed to be able to blend in more. And then they were like, you know what? It's a little bit more sensationalized if the villain is the big muscular one and not, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be Kyle Reese. So it was like
okay.
the skinny machine versus the buffed out, action hero.
Probably could have even had a fist fight at that point.
Right. So then they were like, no, let's make it even harder. Let's make the machine the fucking tank. And then, the hero has, like, insurmountable odds. And another weird thing about casting, and this is something that in retrospect everybody's like, oh my god. Before they put Arnold Schwarzenegger in as the Terminator, their original idea was O.J. Simpson.
Oh,
I remember that.
But they didn't give him the role because they said nobody's going to believe that he could be a killer.
Yeah, I remember
Shut
that.
up!
True.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
Because he
my
was a famous
God.
athlete.
Right.
Like, nobody, like, everyone would have known who he was and wouldn't have believed that he could have been a murderer.
Just like, oh, he's a football player. He's not going to kill anybody. And then you fast forward a couple years and it's like, ooh.
Damn! Oh man. Wow.
Which, I mean, it's a good thing he didn't get it, because otherwise...
Yeah.
Well, no, because otherwise we couldn't have called him the Governator later.
That's true.
Oh.
I have a note that I always thought was funny about the beginning of the film, too. That they just rip out the yellow pages. And it's just kind of like, fuck you if you want to look anybody up.
They do that in so many movies. They did it in Back to
That's
the
true,
Future.
yeah.
Not that Tony would know that.
No, I still haven't watched Back to the Future for some reason. Some odd reason. I don't know. Leave a comment below about I'm a terrible person. I know I am. So, I mean, there's so many different things about the movie that I can just, say is like amazing and stuff like that. One thing I want to point out though, and this is what I'm going to say, we're going to go through our favorite and our least favorite things too. We always do that on the 4 Real Movie Club, so don't worry, we're going to do that. But if I weren't going to pick the thing that I am going to pick for my favorite scene, I would pick this, and it's for the non-special edition where you can see the deleted scenes and stuff. It definitely is my favorite part of the film, and it's a good way to sum up a lot of the series too. And it's just a real seminal moment for it when they've already gotten on the run from the T-800, and Kyle and Sarah are parked in the parking garage. And she bites his hand, and he's just like, fuck you. Like, I can feel this pain, too. Mm-hmm. But she's flipping out, and he says an amazing line. He says, listen and understand. That Terminator is out there, and it feels no pity, no remorse, no fear. It doesn't, like, you cannot reason with it. It's there to fucking kill you. And that is it. Bottom line, it absolutely will not stop, ever, until you are dead. And that's when she finally realizes, like, fuck.
Yeah.
Because it's just a good, like, this is your life now. You can't run away from this. It's never going to end. Deal with it. And that's where she switches over from being the waitress that gets ice cream put in her dress.
Yeah.
To somebody who's like, now I actually have to think about this, and now I actually have to, grow the fuck up and stuff. I love that line so much because it's, it's very, like, gut-wrenching, and it just hits you, like, right in the stomach, especially how it ends, he absolutely will not stop ever until you are dead. There's some other lines in the movie that really kind of illustrate it too, like when he's yelling and he's going to rip her heart out and stuff like that. But that always stood out to me as one of the best parts of the film.
Because he also kind of to the whole Skynet situation, right? I mean,
yeah.
We've seen how this movie begins, and for like most humans, the majority of humans, everybody's dead, and it's really because Skynet doesn't feel. They're just, they have a mission, and they're just gonna go to do whatever it takes to achieve that mission. And I feel like that's also why that line is just, I agree, it's a really, really good line. It really resonates with the whole, not just the first movie, but also with the second one and the third one.
Yeah,
and
they're
so on.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the Tech Noir scene, the nightclub? You've got like not only the super 80s people dancing around, that one dude with the skinny white tie who looks like a complete dork. But there's some good tension there, like when she drops something and then she has to go reach over, pick it up, and that's literally what saves her life. And
right.
The idea that like something I'll bring up in Terminator 2, there's the shot where you really start to see how tough the Terminator is, where he gets shot through the glass.
Mm-hmm.
And he just gets right back up. Remember, I'll bring this up in Terminator 2.
Okay.
Well, I
have
gotta say,
so many fun facts with that.
Yeah,
what was that you were gonna say?
When you were talking about your favorite part, it's a throwaway line. It's meaningless to the movie. But for some reason, every time I watch this movie, I can't help but die laughing. Is when that guy's like, "Hey, buddy, you got a dead cat in there or what?"
Yeah.
And it's just like, possible response. Yes. No. Go away. Fuck you, asshole. And he just, in true, like, robotic voice, he just says it so flat. And it's just like, this is the response. Like, why? Of all the possible things he could have said, why that one?
Yeah, he could have easily went, no. And the guy would have been like, oh, okay. Instead, it's just, fuck you, asshole. I even like the guy saying that line, too, because, like, how I always like the whole, what the hell, goddamn son of a bitch thing. I love how that guy says that. He's like, hey, buddy, got a dead cat in there? Like, he's got the cigar in his mouth. Weird thing when it comes to the apartment scenes. If you pay a lot of attention, or actually you don't even need to pay that much attention now, but now that CGI's gotten better and stuff like that, all the shots where you see the messed up eyeball,
mm-hmm.
it's a puppet.
Oh, really?
Wait, what are you talking about?
When he's carving out the eye?
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a puppet head.
That's why the face looks so unrealistic.
So plasticky.
Yeah.
They do the same kind of thing in 2 scenes in Terminator 2, but much better where you can't tell as much. But it's very like when he moves his head side to side, you're like, oh yeah, he's got like no soul behind those eyes. And then it cuts to the next shot where he puts on the glasses, and you're like, oh, now he's alive again. It's very bad. The stop motion animation is pretty bad at certain parts.
Oh, I like it though. I feel like I don't know, like one of my favorite parts is probably when he's like removing part of his face. And yes, I know, like the effects are not amazing, but I remember when I first watched it, like to me that was so cool.
It's a good visual, like the idea that he's cutting out the fucking eyeball and stuff. Like
the stop motion now, when I look at it, especially when it's full body Terminator at the end, like chasing her, it now looks cheesy, but I remember when I was a little kid and I watched that movie for the first time, its unhuman movement was just terrifying. It made it seem more like a robot to me. Logistically, there should have been no difference between Terminator and Terminator as Schwarzenegger. There should have been no difference because all it is an organic layering. But once it goes full Terminator and it starts doing that stop motion movement, it was just creepy.
That is true. That is a really good point.
I will have to say, though, my least favorite scene of the whole film, that corridor shot.
Oh, really?
At the very end. Because it's like the sound effects that they use where it's kind of like dragging its feet, and it's just like... and it's
the
so fake.
The overly robotic.
With the 80s music and that... and I'm like, oh man, it's
just
hard
to think, like, it was the 80s. Everybody was high on coke. Like, that made total sense. Like, they probably were like, no, we need to add more. We need more. That's what happened.
Stan Winston's making the puppet, and he's just kind of like, I don't know if this works. can I have some more Coke? It's a shame that he
Bless
passed
his
away, though,
soul.
because he was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, another thing that's pretty cheesy in there, but it works, of course, and it's necessary, the sex scene.
Well,
yeah.
you gotta.
I mean, yeah.
Not even just for viewers like me. Like, just to show, like, hey guys, this is John. Like, right now, like, this is happening.
Right.
I always thought it was like really creepy. Now maybe like I'm not a people person, and I'm also not a. I can be romantic, can't we all? But I'm not very, and I'm very cold. So when he's like, I came back for you, Sarah, I'd have been like, whoa, like, alright, let's take
Boundaries.
a step. Right?
Yeah.
I'd have been like, this is creepy that you became obsessed with this girl and then volunteered to come back and nail her.
Yeah.
Well, he
And
didn't come back to nail her.
Well, it's
Well,
his.
I'm
think
sure
about
it
it.
was in his mind.
Right, it's his hero's mother.
Yeah.
It's like, this is John Connor's mom, and he's in love with her. Like, I wonder if it ever crossed his mind that he'd be his father.
I
Yeah,
doubt
I
it.
was just gonna ask that too.
I guess
Tony?
probably not, because, like, he wouldn't have fallen in love with her. He did that before the whole time travel thing.
Yeah,
But then
just
he
from the
volunteered-
picture.
Right, and then he volunteered to go save her, and, like, they don't know any, and he even said to her, I think, they don't know anything about his father. So it's,
I don't know.
I guess he wouldn't have thought that. Otherwise, he's
Still
like,
creepy though.
I just picture him now in bed with her, like going at it, looking up at the air, going, "I'm doing it for you, Johnny."
Ah!
Well, no, he says he's a virgin in there, so I bet the whole sex scene lasts about like a minute and a half in reality, and that he probably is sitting there going, "Oh my god, it's finally happening."
Aw.
There's a couple deleted scenes that are before and after that I think are great. After that, there's a scene where she starts tickling him, and he's like, "What the hell is this?" And she's like, "It's tickling," and he's like, "I don't like this," and she's like, "You're not supposed to," and like he's just like, "Ah, fuck." But you actually see him laughing and stuff, and it's like there's this kind of like weird bliss on his face of just kind of like, doesn't matter, had sex. Like,
This is a guy who spent his entire life in a war zone. He probably never had that kind of interaction.
no, not at all. And there's a great scene before the sex scene, where when they're making the bombs and stuff like that, she mentions stuff about hot dogs, and he's like, "Hot dogs?" He's like, "Yeah, hot dogs." And he's just kind of like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Right, and what's great is, like, it's not even that it's so much in the future that he doesn't know what they are. It's because no one's eating hot dogs when you're fighting for life. Like,
Yeah.
it's little things. Like, it's not that no one remembers hot dogs. No one was there to explain to him what a hot dog was. They were
Right.
probably eating, like, things out of cans and whatever they could get their hands on.
They've got like that pasty stuff that they're eating in the Future Remembered scene.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, he grows up after the war. It's 40 years from now, so like he's got no hot dogs. Nobody's figuring out a way to put boots and all the other kind of ingredients together and make a hot dog.
Alright, who's in the war zone right now? Because, like, that's the second cop car I've heard go by.
That's me.
Good job.
It's because I'm at Union Square, so it's like every 5 seconds there's either like fire trucks or police or ambulance, like something's
HKs.
going on. Yeah, like Illuminati, all of them.
What do you guys think about the false finish with the exploding truck, where you think everything's done and then bam, the fucking Terminator skeleton pops up?
I remember when I first watched it, and I was like, it was almost like I was kind of like frustrated. It was really like, oh, thank God, now she's okay. Now she can relax. Now she can go back to whatever she was doing before everything's safe. And when it happened, it was like a mix of being very excited, because I think I was like fairly young, and I grew up watching horror movies, and that's like really a horror movie thing where you always like, oh, they killed the creature or they defeated the creature, but the creature is like, it's representing something much deeper than just a monster, so it's always going to be there. So, and before I watched Terminator, for me, action movies was just, it was more like, kind of like James Bond kind of situation. So I remember thinking like, that's an action movie. Like, stuff like this doesn't really happen in action movies. And that made me like it more and appreciate it more, because I guess it just made me really realize that this is not just a movie that is just gonna, be another action movie I just watched and that's that. It's actually, that's why people like it. That's why it's considered to be a classic type of thing.
And then they do it again later on after Kyle puts the stick of dynamite in it, and you're like, all right, well, now it's gotta be good. Like, not only did the car explode, but the thing exploded, and then it pops back up, and you're like, motherfucker, like, how's this thing gonna die?
Like, this thing is not gonna stop.
Mm-hmm. I've always
of course
kind
they crush
of
it.
disliked that "you're terminated, fucker" line, though.
Yeah, it was very forced.
Mm-hmm.
It was very forced.
I think the fucker part gets me.
Yeah. If it was like, you're terminated, asshole. Like, then I think like it was just too forced. It really was.
Or if it was just, you're terminated. Like, that's what they do when they edit that scene for TV. But the fucker part, like, it's gonna be like, that's mean.
Right.
I'm not a fucker. But it is a visual to have, like, the iris finally goes out.
Yeah.
Now you know it's done, and it's like, oh, thank God.
Finally.
Reminds me of Hal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what's creepier, though, the Terminators or Hal. I think Hal is.
Hal's creepier. It just reminds me of that.
Yeah, if the Terminators each start singing Daisy, Bicycle Bill for 2 whenever they die, that's going to be... One deleted scene that I think that they really should have kept in there, and I kind of disagree with why James Cameron deleted it. He said that it wasn't necessary because they wanted to not tell the audience this. They wanted the audience to kind of make their own conclusions and stuff, but that building that they're in, after they load up Reese's corpse, they put him in the body bag, they put Sarah on her gurney, and they take her in the hospital and stuff like that. There's a shot where 2 workers pick up they pick up a chip, and one of the police guys goes, hey, you can't touch any of this stuff. And he's like, okay. Then he hands it to the other guy, and he goes, what's this? And he's like, oh, it's some kind of a microchip. Take this down to R&D. I want some specs drawn up by tomorrow. And then the camera pans up, and the building that they're in is Cyberdyne Systems.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's why they built it. And, they go into it in Terminator 2, but that would have made so much sense to keep that in my mind.
I wonder if it was more, because, I could be wrong if that was the one Terminator, but wasn't James Cameron, during post-production in a big fight with some of the producers? And that's kind of why, like, the editing, like, a lot of the deleted scenes end up not make, and I mean, they deleted scenes anyway. Some of the scenes just became, like, deleted scenes. It was really because he was in a fight with the producers or the studio. And I wonder if that scene wasn't something related to that, because apparently some of the producers were trying to edit the movie their own way. Mm-hmm. And maybe
they were cutting short on time.
Like, took that one to spite them or something, because they edit or because why would sorry.
I always had just assumed it was they didn't want to set up for a sequel.
They did and they didn't, but he does say that they cut a lot of things for time, that people were like, well, you need to shave as much off as possible. Because people think this, like, you can't have a movie that's too long because then you don't do as many screenings and people won't want to sit through it and stuff. And then it's like, okay, well then let's do the 4-hour Lord of the Rings and everybody fucking goes.
Yeah.
So that proves them wrong. Yeah, I agree with the on that one. I don't want to watch people walk for that fucking long.
Yeah, I can't. I'm sorry. Like, my bladder cannot hold my soda for that long and will not.
Oh, I have no problem with that. I just want to blow my brains out with seeing everybody talk about elves and shit for that long. Oh, I'm, Boffle and Toffle and whatever. And it's just like, ugh, give me a goddamn news.
Hickory Dickory Dock.
Sadly, I've watched all 6 movies though.
Oh, well.
I didn't see the last 2 Hobbit films. Just the first one.
I watched the first Lord of the Rings and maybe the second one just a little bit, and that was it. I was like, not for me.
Well, they were gonna call it Lord of the Wings, but then they decided to keep the Eagles out of it.
Stop! Bamboo rings!
Let's just put it this way. Terminator 3 is easier to watch than Hobbit 2 and 3.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Yeah.
Real quick, though, let's go around. What were some of your favorite and least favorite parts that either we talked about and you want to elaborate on, or that we didn't talk about yet? Caroline, let's go with you first.
Okay. Like I said, I do love when he reveals part of his face. His eye, his red eye. I love all that part. I mean, it was like seeing a real metal skeleton in front of me, and I love that. Like a horror movie. So I feel like that would be one of my favorites. I also love the whole shopping scene with the guns. And you guys probably hear some of my dog snoring in the background. Sorry. My least favorite.
If your dog starts barking, then we know that a Terminator is coming.
She doesn't bark. She'll probably be really excited because she loves boys. I mean, if it was a female Terminator, maybe she wouldn't really like it, but...
Nobody likes the TX.
Yeah, I don't blame her for that. One thing that I also liked a lot, and it's not really a scene, but it's more of Sarah Connor's like character development. I love Linda Hamilton. I love her in that movie, and I always love when I see, especially a female character going through hell and in the beginning she's this super underestimated, people take advantage of her, and then at the end she shows off as this really strong woman who's just been through hell and back from something that is completely unimaginable, and she like totally rocks, and I love that.
The on your feet soldier thing.
Yeah. Like
that's a good turning point.
I love it. She's just and it works for her, you know, because looking at her, like, she already looks like a very strong woman, but the whole thing in the beginning, like, she barely really talks, and people take advantage of her in the diner and treat her like shit, and it's just like, oh man, like, every single woman has just been through this at one point in their lives, and then she turns around and she's like kick-ass, and she's like an awesome heroine for the rest of the movie, and I really love that. My least favorite part, I don't know. I don't think there's like one scene that like I hated about it. Let me think on that. For a second.
All right, go on your part, Sam. What do you think? What are some of the good and bad?
For me, the bad would probably end up being, it's weird because it's so 80s, but it came out in the middle of the 80s. So like that wouldn't have been weird for them, but looking back, it's just weird to watch.
Back in 1984 when it came out, they're like, this is so modern.
Right. So like I think it's just weird to see how overly 80s it is. It takes me out a little bit. And then probably my favorite parts, probably strange to say, I really appreciate the scenes where Kyle is interrogated. Where like because if you think about it, a lot of movies fall into the trap of guy from the future talks about all this stuff from the future. This movie, you really believe this guy is from there, because he's not talking like it's in the future. He's talking like it's now. I know that might be weird, like, to hear it said that way, but you guys know what I'm talking about with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he refers to himself as Sergeant Kyle Reese, TechCom, you know, whatever, instead of like, I'm from the future. I'm whatever,
right.
You know.
Yeah, he never really talks like that. In a lot of these movies, it's like, I'm from the future and this is gonna happen. And like, he mentions things that will happen, but he talks about it like, I don't have time for this.
Mm-hmm.
Not here's some information about the future. It's, can you guys let me get on with what I have to do because this girl could be dead.
Yeah. Where he's like, I've already answered your questions and
like you said earlier, he's like, I didn't build the fucking thing.
That whole shootout is great too.
Yeah, in the police station.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. That would be my favorite part.
Another deleted scene is when the older cop, I can't remember his name now, I'm thinking of it, Joe, I think, or whatever. He in one deleted scene, he believes it afterward, and he hands a gun to Kyle, the same gun that he gives to Sarah when he says, take this and I'm going to go out to get some supplies.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, she's got to live, so do whatever you need to do. And then immediately dies, because, it's like, I gotta say, though, my favorite thing from this movie, and I'm so disappointed that it's a deleted scene, but if you ever get a chance to watch the deleted scenes, make sure that you watch, at the very least, this one. There's a scene that takes place before they get to the hotel, or the motel. That's certainly not a hotel.
Yeah.
Right.
And Sarah's like a little bit more jovial, and she says to Kyle, look what I just found, and it's the address for Cyberdyne Systems. And he's like, yeah, so? And she's like, so we can fucking blow the building up, and if we do that, then we can stop Judgment Day. And he's like, that's not my mission. And she's like, well, fuck you, I don't care if it's your mission, like, let's blow it up, let's stop all this, and then we can, live happily ever after and whatever. And he's like, that's dangerous, I'm not going to do it and whatever. And she gets all pissed off and runs away, and they kind of like find themselves in a wooded area, and he breaks the fuck down, and he just starts saying, I wasn't meant to see any of this. There's so much beauty that is gone.
Aww.
And you have no idea how hard it is for me. It's tough for you to deal with this, but he's like, I'm looking at, these birds, and he pulls up this plant and he starts crying, and he's like, and this, and you, and it hurts.
Aww,
and it's like at that moment you're kind of like, fuck, man, like you don't think about it with, it's kind of like it falls into like a little bit of like a sexist kind of range, but like this movie plays with that, the gender roles. Like, Sarah is a strong character at the end of it. She's not just a damsel in distress.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one that terminates the Terminator.
Right.
And Kyle sitting there, he's the one having a breakdown because he's saying there's so much beauty out there, instead of her being like, well, you're probably a damaged soul, and just being like, fuck you, I like guns, I'm a guy,
Yeah.
And he's sitting there, he's looking at, a daffodil or whatever it is, and he's just like crying his eyes out, just going like, I didn't want to see this stuff, like, this is terrible, like, it's amazing.
Like,
and
to him, it's a memory. Like, not even his memory. It's something that somebody probably once told him about. And now he's seeing that it really did exist. Like, not only, it's not even it did exist, it's now I can actually hold it in my hand. And he's crying over flowers and birds when they're running for their lives. Like, it shows you how traumatic the future has to be.
And how something as simple as that is like, when he says, you don't get it, everything's gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't matter if, like, you lost your internet connection, or, like, you're living, in a shitty apartment. There are no apartments. There's no goddamn trees.
Right.
Like,
and it's not like you can possibly, like, get out of your cave or your hiding spot to just, like, breathe the air, like, calm yourself down. You can't really do that because you might die.
Mm-hmm.
Probably is no air with all the, probably, from all the bombs that have probably exploded, all the dirt and debris probably in the atmosphere.
Yeah, the ashy clouds and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite scenes of the whole thing. I really wish they would have kept
I can't
that in
believe
there.
that's... So if this version that you have, can you play the whole movie including the deleted scenes? Or
Not
do you
that
have
one, but you can with Terminator 2. And
I see.
Terminator 2 is so damn good. It's special, extended special edition. I'll be actually one of my favorite scenes in that is going to be, I'll mention that too, and my least favorite scene is too. But out of a score of 0 to 10, what would you give the Terminator, Caroline?
I'll give it a 7, just because I like Terminator 2 better. But I mean, like I said, it changed the way I saw action films. I still think that the animation is cool.
Well, you are an effects person.
Yeah,
makeup and stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of like I grew up watching movies like the Adventures of Simba, like really, really old, not slow motion,
Stop motion.
claymation and stop motion. So, like, to me, I still like it a lot. I still like it. And I do love it that it's very 80s because growing up in Brazil, my 90s were kind of like your 80s because everything's just, like, so delayed. So, like, I grew up with my aunts all looking like, Linda's, like, haircut, like that kind of deal. So, I'll give it a 7.
You're going to get a message tomorrow and somebody from Brazil's going to be like, have you heard this song Africa by Toto?
Oh, I'm sure that people that are listening to this and are Brazilian from the South are going to be like, oh, you are totally wrong. I grew up in the 90s. Bitch, I'm from the North, okay? In the North, your 90s were our 80s and vice versa. No, that makes no sense. You get what I'm saying. Everything was very delayed in the North, so just deal with that.
Sam, what would you give it, 0 to 10?
0 to 10, this movie to me is a solid 8. It's a very good movie. It's action, but it's a borderline horror movie. I think Caroline said that earlier. It's got a lot of themes in it that you really, if you're a less intelligent person, could go right over your head. But if you look at it, I'm not sure how to describe it. It's the kind of movie that if you really think about it, I think you'll get more out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys agree with that?
Oh,
yes.
definitely.
Yeah.
So that's why I give it like a solid 8. It's one of my favorite films besides obviously Terminator 2. But like I can't say like, oh well, I like Terminator 2 better, so I gotta knock that one down a little bit. Like I'll even tell you guys right now, to me T2 is a 9. And this one's an 8. Like they're both very good movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give it an 8.5. I usually don't give half scores, but this is a movie that I can literally just pop on. And some people criticize it because they say that it's too slow. But,
Really?
Yeah, I think that those people, a lot of them are the same people that they prefer something like a Terminator 3 because it's just like mindless action.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, Sam sums it up by saying if you think about it more, you'll get more out of it. There's so much more heart to this movie than something like Terminator 3, which is just a soulless cash grab. God damn, I hate that movie. But I'm giving it an 8.5. This is one of my favorite films of all time. And then when it comes to T2, which just amps it up even more. But we will talk about T2 in the next part. So if you are on YouTube, all you got to do is click on that next video. If you're on iTunes or Stitcher, then you got to just wait about 5 seconds, and we will be right back. Yes, we'll be back.